major activities of us. To address this scope of work, we do different kind of activities, including training, seminars, and workshops, locally and abroad. Please refer to our website www.expopro.org for details. I'm happy today to present Into Hope Enterprise of South Africa, a strategic partner of EXPOPRO, in this webinar in association with FLUX. I welcome you all to join and stay with us in today's webinar, which hope you will find interesting and useful. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamun Bhai. Now I would like to invite Mr. Fahud Khan, CEO of FLUX, to give some welcome remarks. Fahud Bhai, we can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Flux is very proud to be associated with the evening webinar titled Emotional Intelligence to Deal with Domestic Violence Against Women during COVID-19. Where the development practitioners are always vocal against violence against women. A new phenomenon arrived when the entire world was forced to stay at home. We began to see the rise of domestic violence. Today, the eminent panelists will focus on the reason behind this and how can tackle this situation. The role of emotional intelligence will also be discussed. I wish all the participants good luck. I'm really excited to have an interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahud Bhai. Can I request Zaakirah Appa and Razia Appa from South Africa Into Hope Enterprise to say a few words of hello?
Very much. Assalamu alaikum, good day and good evening to one and all. I am Razia Khan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I am Zaakirah Khan.
And we are the co-CEOs of Into Hope Enterprises. I am the Director of Development
and the Director of Curriculum,
and we specialize in emotional intelligence. We'd like to thank EXPOPRO and FLUX, as well as the lovely Ms. Mehzabin, for this opportunity and for your kindness. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get into the main session. We would like to start today's session by showing a video by UN Women on what is the shadow pandemic. Let's see what is the shadow pandemic. Fahud Bhai, there's no sound.
In one weekend, calls to domestic abuse helplines in the UK went up by 65%. In the US, Asia, and pretty much everywhere, reported numbers are rising. These aren't just numbers, they're people you might know. If you think someone is in trouble, check in on them. Ask them if they're okay and if everything at home is okay. Educate yourself about domestic violence. Know the details of local services like helpline numbers or shelters. If she tells you or you suspect that her life or the lives of her children are in immediate danger, call the protection units or the police. The shadow pandemic is spreading right now. Let's help each other safely right now.
So we saw a video on the shadow pandemic by UN Women. As you know, violence against women and girls is increasing globally as per World Health Organization, WHO, and the UN as well. UNICEF even estimates that child marriage has gone up globally by 20%, for example. So let's hear the keynote presentation today on what is emotional intelligence and how emotional intelligence can be used as a remedy against domestic violence. The keynote speakers, as we said earlier, are Ms. Razia Khan and Ms. Zaakirah Khan, co-CEOs of Into Hope Enterprise South Africa and lecturers at the Tshwane Institute of Technology in South Africa. Let's go into the keynote presentation. We'll be seeing it pre-recorded and they'll be here live online to answer your queries.
Good day, one and all, and welcome to today's webinar session focusing on emotional intelligence and dealing with domestic violence of women during COVID-19. Trust you and your loved ones are in good health and great spirits. Today's webinar is presented by myself, Zaakirah Khan, co-CEO of Into Hope, along with my awesome and incredible colleague and sister, co-CEO of Into Hope, Razia Khan, and Director of Curriculum. Please be advised that this is a recorded version of the webinar series part 1. For those of you just joining, welcome, and let's begin. So, we start off by looking at who we are. Who is Into Hope? Into Hope was initiated many years ago, not under the same name or brand. However, it was always an ideology driving towards one's goal. I am grateful and pleased to share that Into Hope is influenced by 4 powerful millennials. Now, despite being unique in personality, we share the same kind of ordeals. However, through trials and tribulations, we have come up with a solution to answer the needs of the world as we continue to prove that we are the most influential generation. Our courses were not created formally through agencies and textbooks. Rather, it was created through our studies and experience of trauma and misfortune. At Into Hope, we trade an ability and a gift to create change in mindset and potential in oneself, thus being professionally and personally transformed. We don't trade courses. We share knowledge, experience, and wisdom. So, what do we have to offer? We assist with reforming and amplifying individuals at workplaces to make positive choices personally and professionally. Now, when these steps are taken, common ethical issues are minimized, GBV, IPV, domestic violence are reduced through awareness and education. Our current successful training courses to combat these challenges are emotional intelligence, and this series covers the following topics. So, the first one up we have is Emotional Intelligence Training for All. This accredited emotional intelligence course is dedicated to educate and train individuals to improve their communication skills, assist in dealing with stresses, diffuse conflicts, and improve better or create relationships. Next up on the list, we have emotional intelligence, which is awareness of IQ versus EQ wielding. In this course, we explore and discuss different factors that contribute to identity crisis, the causes thereof, and the necessary prevention measures and techniques which can be used to ensure that we as individuals are able to make choices for ourselves and, with complete confidence and security. And then we move on to a very important one and a very relevant one, which is Mastery in Suicide Prevention. Now, this tailored course focuses on the origin, the process, and the recollection of memories in potential suicide attempters and victims. We take you through understanding the mindset and the motives behind suicide attempts. And lastly, moving on to Psyche of a Perpetrator. Now, this tailored and accredited course develops one with the wisdom and awareness in recognizing a victim, perpetrator, and a contributor. It explores the stagnated mindset of a victim and the perseverant mindset of a perpetrator or contributor. Now, being able to clearly distinguish the distinct characteristics of each, the individual, and it will assist in dealing in the most effective manner. We also customize according to the needs of companies and organizations to address the challenges faced within their sphere. So moving on to our second segment, we look at ELT, English Language Training. So, English Language Training. We have had the extreme pleasure of being a part of the TIPO community for 8 years. And through our teaching, we have discovered not just positives, but negatives as well. The mindsets, specifically the mindsets and the lifestyle of students, especially children. In many countries in the world, children are accustomed to a pandemic-like violence from teachers, parents, peers, and sometimes even strangers. This kind of behavior towards children has increased suicide stats, lack of motivation to learn, dream, persevere. Thus, our creation and inspiration for developing the course of Mastery of Suicide Prevention. Now, teaching English as a foreign language is a way to incorporate cultural exchange and develop cultural awareness through the English language. A beautiful concept. Sadly, this $200 billion global industry is flawed. A TEFL teacher's belief system of teaching English abroad is to pay off student loans, travel, party, no experience, easy money type of job, which is why most teachers run away within the first month, and 8% of teachers leave their teaching positions yearly because of the pressure, lack of support, unawareness of how to educate and how to interact with children. So how do we assist with this flaw? Our initiative is to train the trainer with the correct skills and techniques which are adapted to classes by understanding the true mindset and a bond a teacher and a student shares to accomplish prosperous results. We don't teach you the language, we teach you the people. So that is the difference we believe the English language training can make in the world. Now moving on to our next successful collaboration. We have the collaboration between Interhope and Contime MPC. Through the collaboration of education, training, mental wellness, and employment, women have progressed in underprivileged areas. Let's take a look at these 4 initiatives. The first one up is education. Domestic violence, GBV, IPV victims turned students have now discovered the causes of their suffering and have become uplifted and empowered enough for themselves and their families through education and training from Contime MPC's educational stream, Contime College. As we move on to training, once victims now train survivors, making the difference they wish to see in the world. These women who were once victims are now trained survivors, and they are making the difference they wish to see in the world. And as we move along to mental wellness and its importance, the Mental Wellness Trauma Life Coach Worker Program is offered with emotional intelligence courses and training to assist companies and institutes further. We have had phenomenal success with this program where employee and employer relationships are improved and women feel safer and more secure in their job positions and their environments. And finally, it brings us to employment. Now, this brings us to a new and improved life coach worker being able to assist through mental wellness at workplaces that they join. It has opened up entrepreneurial perspectives in the youth. Our latest, a 19-year-old who has opened up her own successful business, run from her home during the COVID-19 lockdown. She has managed to pay off her own student tuition for this year and the new academic year. And we have also produced internships, new business ventures, and sustainable employment initiatives in underprivileged communities for women and youth in South Africa. So those are our initiatives that we initiate to combat all the pandemics in the world. Now, as we move on, let's view a list of the current challenges that we face. The world is experiencing a pandemic-like change for what is true and what is real. However, most of us have not come to terms with this reality. Now we have the COVID-19, the pandemic of COVID-19 has led to the surface of many challenges. However, most importantly, that of an individual's mindset. Now the world is run by people. Without holistic individuals, the latest products, particularly services and prestige companies, are but just dominant objects, no longer relevant, no longer productive. When the mind is faced with sudden shock, pain and fear, past struggles, challenges and trauma within oneself surfaces, and therefore one's mind becomes unsettled by displaying different kinds of personality and behavior, which would be eventually hazardous towards oneself, others, and especially those residing with us. Now, what kind of personality and behavior changes am I referring to? A change in thought displays a change in feeling. For example, thoughts of anger, of something that has not been settled, can provoke a person to lash out at the person closest to you. Thus, you'd speak about topics that you'd never bring up, such as divorce, ill talk, become violent, display different forms of abuse. Please know, these aren't excuses made for abusers. Rather, it's a fact of the mindset of an unsettled individual. Now, during COVID-19, there has been an increase in violence all around the world. And with that, we're going to take a look at the stats. So taking a look at the stats overview, we have multiple of them where it's GBV, IPV, rape, divorce, crime, and economy. Now, taking a look at our first one, we have GBV and IPV stats. And over here, according to the UN, the United Nations has described the worldwide increase in domestic violence as a shadow pandemic alongside COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't know which one is worse, COVID-19 or the GBV pandemic. It has thought that cases have been increased by 20% during the first week of lockdown, as many people were trapped in their homes with their abuser. And as we move along to the next stat, we look at rape. Rape has become what we call now a rape culture. And as you can see on the graph, these are the rape percentages per 100,000 population. According to the UN, for females aged between 15 to 44 years old, violence is a major cause of death and disability. Rape and IPV are higher risk factors for women in this age group than cancer, motor vehicle accidents, war, or malaria. And as we move on to the next one, we're looking at divorce. Now, divorce has increased worldwide due to the lockdown. A survey in Bangladesh, Dhaka North and South Corporation shows 70% of the applications for divorce are filed by wives, and increased by 34% in the US, where a full 20% of couples sought to divorce, being married for less than 5 months. Shanghai has seen a 75% increase in work case, where divorce procedures take 40 minutes to an hour, And Japan has seen an increase of 280,000 divorce cases. Among other countries include Nepal, Turkey, India, Jordan, to name a few. And as we look at the next stat, we're looking at crime and the increase thereof. Now, the hefty job loss has led to human trafficking, burglary, hijacking, hate crimes, murder, fraud, scam, and the list continues. And as we take a look at our last stat, we're looking at the economy, a very important one. The economy has suffered severely in job loss and unemployment on the rise. Reduced staff time costs companies between 3 to 9%. Now, women who have suffered IPV work 10% fewer work days per year than women who have not been subjected to violence. Now, we believe that if we dealt with all these pandemics, COVID-19 would not have been indeterminately challenging. What are these previous pandemics I'm referring to? Well, let's take a list. GBV, gender-based violence, IPV, intimate partner violence, and DV, domestic violence. Not to mention child marriages. Now, child marriages is listed as a pandemic here because child marriages are linked with early childbearing, leading death and injury for many young mothers. Let's view the actual definition of the term pandemic. And viewers, you decide whether these mentioned above fall under the category of pandemic. So as we look at pandemics, a pandemic is defined as an epidemic occurring worldwide or over a very wide area, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting a large number of people. The classical definition includes nothing about population immunity, virology, or disease severity. By this definition, pandemics can be said to occur annually in each of the temperature southern and northern hemispheres. Now, given that seasonal epidemics cross international boundaries and affect a large number of people, however, seasonal epidemics are not considered pandemics. Now, ignoring these pandemics does not mean it will disappear or it won't affect you or your loved ones or the people at your workplace, including yourself. Now, just as staff members and others are working and striving night and day to find an actual virus for COVID-19, we can work together through education toward an antivirus to stop prevalent existing viruses such as GBV, IPV, domestic violence, common ethical issues, and more. But how do we achieve this? Well, a holistic mindset is an educated mindset that prepares you to perceive, adapt, persevere, and live. Let's look at the 4 lessons we have up here. Lesson number 1, perceive. Being able to perceive a situation in order to be prepared and in control allows you to reach success faster. Looking at our next lesson, so if you are able to perceive, you can then move on to adapt. Now, one will be able to adapt to a situation when prepared, and then change becomes easy. And once we are able to adapt, we are then able to persevere. Now, from this step onwards, one can persevere with courage today, tomorrow, and always. And with all that said, the last but not least that we really want to do is live. Life won't be perfect, but it will be much, much healthier and a happier place for you to live in. So it is time that we work with these pandemics to eradicate falsehood, fear, injustice. Now, it's not possible, or as we would say, it is not impossible, it's simple. Start by making a choice and ask yourself, what do I want my future to be like? For myself, for my family, for my friends, for my employees, for my country, for my company. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the emotional intelligence, which we believe is the antidote to the global pandemics discussed. Now, taking a look at emotional intelligence, a question we get asked very, very often, what is emotional intelligence? Okay, so the first question we have is, what is emotional intelligence? Now, emotional intelligence, emotional leader, emotional quotient, it's the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in a positive way. It involves the ability to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflicts. It encompasses social awareness and allows an individual to fully perceive in all aspects and situations. Now, how is it important in combating GBV and all pandemics? Now, the roots of violence are deeply embedded in our homes, our society, tapping into complex conditions such as hatred for other religions or types of sexual orientation, gender inequality, poverty, racism, joblessness, hopelessness. The presence of emotional intelligence is not more or less in males or females. It is equal, yet completely dependent on how the individual is willing to use it. As we become more aware of our emotions, manage our emotions, empathize, build social capital in an emotionally stable way, we can reduce violence one person at a time. Now remember, our IQ is something we can always learn. Our EQ goes far beyond. It is something which is part of us. It makes up half of our brain. The only question is, are you willing to use it? So now that we know what emotional intelligence is, let's look at something else. How can emotional intelligence help victims and survivors? Now, there is a major difference between a victim and survivor of abuse. A victim is defined by the harm that has come to them. A survivor is defined by their lives afterward, or the way they live their life afterward. A victim has been destroyed and mistreated. A survivor has continued to live and prosper despite having been victimized. A victim is powerless at the mercy of others. A survivor has reclaimed their power. Educating and training victims and survivors in emotional intelligence has an effect on social change and personal perspective of focusing on enhancing skills in introspection, healthier emotional responses, and seeking help and assistance to dissuade a victim or survivor from returning to their abusive relationships, abusive environments, from returning to depression or suicidal thoughts or attempts. It assists in providing a new perspective of life, a willingness to not only exist, but thrive, not only survive, but truly and expressively live. So as we move on to our next one, we have this one of, what role does emotional intelligence play around family and friends and supporters of victims and survivors? In most families, victims of abuse are blamed. They are humiliated, disregarded as human beings, and their situation is ignored. Now, emotional intelligence is a gift to awaken your emotions, to truly see and truly feel for yourself and the world. Emotional intelligence can also help bystanders respond with relevance. So instead of that flight or freeze or flee response, one is able to identify and perceive an unjust situation and deal with it in the most appropriate and just manner possible, without inflicting harm on oneself or others, or without resorting to violence. So the last one we want to take a look at is, what role does emotional intelligence have in the capacity of development within organizations? Well, it's very simple. Goals and objectives can be achieved at a faster pace because staff members will be more capable to diverse planning, organizing, teamwork, and comprehend emotions of themselves and others. And as we move on, we're looking at one of the very important one, which is why is emotional intelligence important for different sectors and the GDP? Well, let's take a look at a few successful companies and leaders that make use of emotional intelligence for themselves and in training their staff, and you will have a better understanding of the use of emotional intelligence and the impact thereof. Now, all of these companies and leaders have been doing very, very well during the COVID lockdown. So let's start off with Elon Musk of Tesla Motors, a new generation inventor sending sports cars to Mars. And then we have Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Everybody loves Amazon. We've got Jack Ma of Alibaba, and we've got Ursula Burns of Vion and Uber. Now, Into Hope's wish for the near future is to have emotional intelligence offered as a subject at schools, universities, and workplaces. Now, offering emotional intelligence at a working practice age is not always efficient. Our experience when working with adults has taught us that adults always believe when something new is introduced that I'm going to get fired, or oh, they're here to take my position. Sorrowful, isn't it? Now, starting from today, or starting from the very beginning, we will be able to prove better results. How we develop our children at a young age will prove how they will develop holistically. After all, they are our future. Emotional intelligence offered as a subject is a gift for all, today and always. We have promising and holistic individuals that are more in control of themselves, and if and when there are issues that might arise, we'll be able to deal with them. Now, every country in every part of the world is concerned about the economy. And like we briefed on before, the world is run by people. Why not make better choices towards holistic individuals using emotional intelligence? So, ladies and gentlemen, we believe within each of us, there is something special and magical which contributes to this majestic world that we live in. We all have a power within us, which we wield and influence with. Now, afford yourself the opportunity to actively employ and embrace your emotional intelligence to create a phenomenal impact and balance in your life holistically. At Into Hope, we can only take this initiative so far. However, with your initiative and assistance, you wield the power to take it further. The world needs you to contribute to it. It is for you to decide how you wish to do so. Go ahead, choose your ink, transcribe your hope. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for being present in our presentation and webinar today. It is now in your hands. We thank you.
Thanks for a good presentation by Zaakirah and Razia. So before we go into the next segment of the interactive discussion, you saw about emotional intelligence, but in Bangladesh also we have some violence against women helplines. We wanted to share with you some helplines that can come useful to you. Fahud bhai? Okay, so let's get into the interactive session. Before that, may I request you all to turn on your videos so we can take a quick screenshot. Yes? Feel free to turn on your videos. We'll be taking some screenshots for documentation. I can see Shamolidi.
Yes.
How are you?
with all, you will take the screenshot?
Yes, Fahad Bhai will go screen by screen and take screenshot.
There is more session, such type of.
No, next session is interactive question answer session, where if you have any questions to the participants, especially from South Africa, Zaakirah and Razia, you can go ahead. So Fahad Bhai, can we start the session?
Yes, we can start.
Okay, so participants, do you have questions? We have Zaakirah, Ms. Zaakirah Khan and Razia Khan all the way from South Africa. This is your opportunity to ask you anything, whether on emotional intelligence or how to deal with domestic violence or anything, you whether you want to cooperate with them or anything that comes to your mind. Feel free to ask.
I like to say.
Yes, Shamolidi, please. Shamolidi is the Chief Executive of ODEB. So we are happy to have her here today.
Yes, thank you all. That means emotional intelligence, the main topics. It is come here as the one of the remedy of such type of gender-based violence or IPV. I just want to know that in case of physical violence in the time of pandemic, how emotional intelligence help victim to overcome the situation. In which way, because it is a paper, like paper presentation or such type of things, but in our community level, in personal level, in which way it can encourage us to stop such type of violence, such as physical violence, sexual, emotional, divorce, crime, anything, economic purpose, everything. Just I want to know what is the perfect application and in which way, especially those two author Razia and how they can think in South Africa context or Bangladesh context. It will be helpful or it will be applicable. It is a new tools for us. As a critical thinker, in which way we can take these things. We need some suggestion from them.
Yes, Zaakirah and Razia, would you like to answer that?
Shukran so much, ma'am, for your question. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your question is very relevant and it is very beautiful. It is the reason why we started emotional intelligence in the first place, and how we find that it helps in different types of abuse: physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. The first video that we looked at, which was the shadow pandemic, that is what we come from. That is where we were 5 years ago. And we've come out of it. We've come out of the violence, the emotional violence, the physical violence, the sexual violence. And we have used two things which help us very much, which is therapy with emotional intelligence. So therapy, when you have mental wellness therapy, you can sit down and understand how you feel, why you have these thoughts, the trauma that you went through. And that's one-on-one. And then you go home and you still in the environment where you getting abused, where you are sexually violated, or you are taking a beating at night from your husband, and your children are witnessing this. And what we've developed is, how can we separate that two, and how can we afford women and children and young men type of lives that they need, that they deserve. So what we do is, when we educate through emotional intelligence, we uplift We uplift the women and the young men and the children, and we uplift them and we help them to understand first who they are, to help them respect themselves, love themselves through all aspects, through education, through religion, through God, through all aspects. They have to accept themselves, love themselves. Then they will be able to respect others. And we have found it was so phenomenal that these young boys and girls are able to, not look at each other as sexual objects and not be so aggressive and so violent toward each other. Instead, they would, come together and he would say, I don't want a girl to look at me like that or treat me that way. And she would say, I don't want to be with a boy or be with a man or husband that treats me this way. So it's something that we push to and that we try to implement as much as we can. However, there's only so much we can reach at a time. And that is saddening. That's very saddening. And we would love to, spend as much time as we can and get to as many houses as we can, because in South Africa, nowhere is safe. Like, I cannot even, for one, our houses are the most dangerous place that we live in. And I cannot even walk outside. You cannot walk your dog or take a walk or even go put your dirt outside, and you have to watch. You have to watch all the time. It is very sickening and it is very depressing, but it has not given us the reason enough to say that men specifically, every single man out there is the problem, and every single woman out there is to be blamed for what she has to suffer with.
It is nice. Now, your sharing is nice, but when women are victim, at that time they need some equipment to rescue from that situation, because it is a psychosocial analysis, just emotional intelligence. It's like now philosophy, and what you say, the boys don't afraid look to boys, boys look to girls. It is also a social taboo in which way our society forms.
Yeah.
Boys thinks girls are commodity. Girls thinks boys are something terror. So total, I think it is a very good philosophy, your emotional intelligence, these terms. It is another kind of psychosocial analysis to overcome the situation. But who learn the community or in-house, that means I am talking about the application method. It is now good philosophy. You present this in such a nice, that it is a good session for me. Especially, I feel it is a very good session for us, a new term. But in which way it will be active in the frame of house, or in the frame of workplace, or in the frame of road? It is, I need some example.
I think one of the aspects is, of course, it's a psychosocial support, especially when you're a victim. It's many victims don't want to leave the place of abuse.
Yes.
Psychosocial support, emotional intelligence can help them get out of their situation. Many domestic violence victims, for example, don't want to leave the abusive relationship. On the other hand, if you're a bystander, it can teach you to be responsible, whether you're a friend, family, or an organization supporting. It can teach you to recognize signs of abuse and warning signs when to intervene. So it can help you also to give psychosocial counseling. It can help you identify and support. So these could be applications, I think.
Yes. Actually, we did it. Many domestic violence case come to our organization because we have a legal service to them.
Mm-hmm.
We counseling them. We made alternative dispute resolution, in which way we try to this. But now I think this emotional intelligence is a good term, and I can I like to use this in our situation. Yes.
And also, ma'am asked about an example. The perfect example was mentioned through the webinar was where our successful stories come from is where basically victims would come for therapy. And when they rape victims and every other kind of victim you can think of, when they would come for therapy, through therapy, they discovered there's a form of education where I can find myself again. And that is when they made better choices. So no, like Ma'am Mehzabin just mentioned, you cannot take a victim out of the house and say, let me teach you, share with you emotional intelligence. It's not going to work that way. Through therapy first, or like Ma'am Mehzabin mentioned, bystanders or family members that would introduce this form of education, that is how you would assist them. Yes.
So we have a comment from Adnan Alam, who is a public health graduate from Australia, that in Australia they have allocated resources against to tackle mental health issues, not only with domestic violence but other issues as well, billions of dollars. It is supposed to be a means not only to end domestic violence, he says, but also to end racism, patriarchy, and other kinds of issues that people face during the lockdown. Still, but he's a bit frustrated that in Bangladesh society, such protection and plan is not there yet. So Adnan Bhai, did I summarize your comments well? He wrote in the chat box. So do we have more? We have other participants as well. Hosni Arapa from TMS is here, Chief from TMS. Do you want to say something as well? Any comments on the session?
Oh.
Or Zaki Bhai from TMS, Hosni Arapa. Zaki Bhai, would you like to say something from TMS? Yes. From South Africa, we have Madiega and Nazrin. Would you like to say anything or share your comments? Oh, I can see Nurun Nahar, madam, here. Yeah. She raised her hand. She's also a senior gender consultant. Maybe she can share some of her insights on the presentation. We can't hear you. You need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, the audience, and especially the presenter, Zaakirah ma'am and Razia, Zaakirah ma'am and Razia ma'am. It's really very, very time suit issues, very needed all the time to address the gender-based violence or any violence. We need to address the emotional intelligence. It's a power. I consider it's a personality trait. Those have these abilities already, they can face it. They control their anger. They don't bother others who mention anything. They don't care. So they can overcome the situation. But many of the women in like Bangladesh, even I think in South Africa or any country, they cannot express because of other social taboo social issues and things. So how can we come, it is important. I would like to say that I have some point to whether you can incorporate those. For example, in Bangladesh, we saw in the family, we need to remember that when a violence occurred, if it is a physical or verbal, whatever it is, it goes, it stop. They beat wife, it stop. But emotion, it works for years and years and years. Cannot forget that emotionally how deep it is the true effect on them. And one important thing is we must remember that the children of the family, I conducted a study in Bangladesh, in almost all over the country. That was the how children are suffer from the domestic violence, from the emotional issues. It remains. They again, not because of their lack of intelligence, emotional intelligence, they forget that I mean, again, they repeat it when their parents do domestic violence in their own life, then they started, they did not stop it because they don't know how to manage emotionally and how much effect is on that. So my request is that in the health system, we found that every, whether rich or poor or very poor people, they never stop women to take care of their children to the hospital for giving the vaccine. I mean, this is uninterrupted. Even the education is interrupted. But all these things are uninterrupted. They love it. So I'd like to request you to add this issue as how children is affected. Women is affected, yes, but if we want to survive from it, so we need to make it understand our men and our women that, look, your children is affected very much. It is not only your wife or your partner. So if we relate with this, and I would like to request that how it affects the children, if you include in this training or curriculum or activities, it will be much more, I think, acceptable. And another thing I would like to say that it could be how we can make it a part of the training of the health worker or any gender-based violence activist training, how we can, if we can involve it, make it a part of the training of this type of any activities, it can be gradually rises. Because I believe this issue of emotional intelligence is a new term. A very few person know about it. Even the psychiatric, only maybe they are for clinical psychology or counseling guidance, they need it. Otherwise, it's not a very popular issues that everybody understand. We understand we should go for case, we should have how can we remove this. But if emotionally we can improve the intelligence of both men and women and the children, then we can overcome all these things. Not in the pandemic situation. Pandemic situation is particularly a very, we all in the world are suffering. And every issue discussed here, the divorce, the suicide, and the rape case, everywhere it is increasing. Because people are not really, cannot think that we live, it will go. When it will go? Vaccine is coming, will it be effective? So there are so many things people are thinking, and people are emotionally disturbed, stressed, distressed. They are suffering. People everywhere, I think, men too. So if we want to make it popular, then we can, I have another suggestion to Zaakirah ma'am and Razia ma'am. Could you please make a cartoon type things? We have a very popular things in Mina cartoon. Through Mina cartoon, people are, and Sisimpur, like things. If we can have the cartoon type things, that will attract, even children will understand from their beginning, well, we have to address the issue this way and that way, not, they will think positively. Thank you. I am really very, how can I say about that I'm happy? How can I say in the emotional intelligence or in the domestic violence, gender-based violence, and in every violence, we cannot see that I'm happy, but I learned. It touched me. Thank you all.
So thank you, Nurun Nahar Begum. She raised a very important issue that domestic violence not only affects the parties such as the women, but also children. And not only in domestic violence, I think that, you know, emotional intelligence also gives you warning signs on how to react. It can also probably give you warning signs if your child is being abused, for example, you know. It's emotional intelligence, one is as a remedy and also to recognize more warning signs. Maybe that could be a scope as well. And infotainment and edutainment can be a good option. Zaakirah or Razia, do you have anything to say to the last comment?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I just wanted to thank the young lady that has spoken earlier on. I'm just truly very, very grateful that there are people out there in the world that give children cognizance. Their emotions are truly, truly important. And yes, the reason that children, as they grow up, they're very much younger, and as they grow up, the reason they are unable to express their emotions, unfortunately and sadly, it comes from the home front. They were not taught that they are significant. They were not taught that they have an identity, and therefore they go out in the world accepting all the negatives that come onto them, whether it's through words, through actions, and it's really sorrowful. So now we have a girl or young boy that are 20 or 30 years old, and they don't even know that the abuse they're receiving or the harsh words they're receiving is actually a form of abuse. So you would have to educate them, and they would have to learn about their identity. So emotional intelligence awakens that person in you, and you start exploring and discovering, oh my goodness, you know, I like this. I enjoy doing these hobbies, or I'm this kind of person. I have likes and dislikes. And when ma'am mentioned that you would love to have sections of information based on children, actually in our emotional intelligence series, we have an entire section on children where adults have the ability to understand a child, you know, what we say and what we do. The infliction we cause upon them is not just today, but forever. So that's one of the aspects that we focused on, because that was really very important to us. As well as we have this amazing, wish to have emotional intelligence be taught to children directly. So if they are educated and equipped at a very young age, they would grow up to be holistic individuals, and they would have beautiful lives always. So thank you very, very much for bringing that up.
Yeah. So I'd like
So
to
yes,
just
please.
one point, that is, I'd like to define domestic violence as a fear and tears by the dears. It's stopped.
Oh wow,
That is so true. It's so true.
it's so
true, and that is so profound, because what happens is we see, as children, we see what our parents do, and then boys believe it's okay to drink alcohol. It's okay to beat my wife. women believe it's okay for me to be abused. It's okay for my husband to hit me. And it's not, because that is not life. Life is not to suffer. If we look at why we were placed here, we were not put here to suffer. We were put here to love. And that is something that, you know, there's no religion, there's no culture that actually preaches violence. It doesn't belong in any book, yet it's practiced in every society.
Accepted.
So that is very sad, very, very sad.
Yeah.
I think that's the sad part of domestic violence. You know, when domestic violence comes from a when violence comes from a stranger, sometimes you say, okay, I didn't know the person, they were bad. But, you know, when the fear comes from your dear, as she said, is very sad. You know, UN estimates that globally 1 in 3 women face intimate partner violence.
Yes.
That's around 30% women globally. That's a lot of women. I've seen Adila Appa raise her hands for a while. Do you want to say something? Adila Appa?
Where is she?
Maybe she left. Okay. In the comments section, we have a comment from Alauddin Bhai. He wants to know, how can we utilize emotional intelligence in professional life? Please give one example. Zaakirah Appa or Razia Appa, do you want to address the question?
Shukran so much for your question. It is a very important question indeed. And yes, it is something that, you know, it's not something that we need to utilize at home, but it's also something that we need to utilize in our workspace. Now, we mentioned a few companies before that, you know, make use of emotional intelligence. And if you look it up on the internet, you Google, you know, can I go for an emotional intelligence course? It's always about leadership. And it's good because it tells you exactly where you need to be in business to be in the millionaire and the billionaire range, which is wonderful. But it only works for 2%, only because they want emotional intelligence for money and for business, but they don't want to practice it at home in the personal relationships. So there's a quote that says, CEOs get hired for their expertise in business, but they get fired for their lack of emotional intelligence. So it is something that if you can, and you're willing to learn it for yourself so that you can understand, you know, how business works, so that you can understand your co-workers and your boss, and how far you want to go in your career path, or even if you are in the right career path. That is all the things it can assist you with. And one of the things we completely disagree with is that emotional intelligence should only be offered to first world nations like America, Australia, Canada. I don't think so. Because it's a secret that has been kept away and told that you cannot know this, you cannot do this because it makes you successful. And that's not what we go for. We want it to be instilled in children so that they understand it, so that they become successful. We want it to be in countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, the whole of Asia, basically. So from the smallest rural communities to the biggest first world countries, everyone needs to know that I have this in my mind and I can use it. I can be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Einstein. I am that already. They just need to know it, and then they can, you know, really bring forth that success.
And if you want to start off with, how do I improve my emotional intelligence at my workplace? Obviously, it's really impossible to go and take up a course right now and just, you know, have it boosted in some way, which I don't think would be, you know, the option. Rather, try and focus on your characteristics and your personality and talk to yourself, explore yourself. What do I do that hurts another human being? In a day, what do I say that might hurt myself? Try and work on your characteristics. Ask yourself questions. Focus on how you interact with other people. Do you make people feel good or not? Do you make people feel uncomfortable? Do you have a lot of friends? Ask yourself these questions as to how and why. And that's your first step to improving your emotional intelligence.
Hosnia Appa from TMS Executive Director. Would you like to share your thoughts on the session?
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hosnia Begum. Already you heard. And I run a organization whose name is TMSS, Tangamara Mohila Shobuj Sangho. The organization is actually born by the emotional force, emotional intelligence. As the organization is born by so many ladies in 1964, that time the ladies who are willing to establish the organization, they are exploiting and that time the violence is not only domestic. Violence is from community, violence from domestic, violence from everywhere. And violence against women was a very common in every corner. That's why the women, they think that we should utilize our emotion very intelligently. That's why they maintain secrecy, they maintain a special strategy for collecting rice in the form of beggar and in so many ways. As the women, they are always subordinate in nature in our community. And previous time it was very bitter situation. And I am very happy, and the emotion is main thing. And emotional intelligence is always needed for making any change, for making compromise, for making any attachment, for establishing a very good family life. Emotional intelligence is very, very important. During COVID period, that importance of emotional intelligence is enormous. As due to COVID, the poverty level become high and disease level become high, and so many complications raise in the body. That's why mentality is not a very cool mentality. It is very hard mentality. So COVID effect increase the women violence in everywhere, especially domestic violence. That's why this very important meeting, I am grateful to organizer, and I am very grateful those who are running this type of very, very important activity. And we are very, very grateful to the organizer grateful to authority to giving me chance to join this type of very important and very, very significant webinar to introduce myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hosna Appa. So Mahbub Bhai has written that another important thing that I think emotional intelligence may help control over the situation when argument starts. So that may be something to control your anger also when argument starts, whether in terms of domestic violence in the family or at the workplace. I believe that's what he meant. It can be a good protector. May I ask our South Africa participants to also share something? Madiega Jacobs from South Africa, would you like to share some of your thoughts? Nazreen Appa from South Africa, would you like to say something? Are you still here? Yes.
Okay, may I say Madiha? So I'm Madiha Jacobs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody. Good evening, or on your side, good afternoon on our side. I'm connected to Inc. to Hope South Africa through their mother's college. Their mother is Professor Khan, and I'm a master's student under her. I just wanted to comment on what Mrs. correctly, I apologize. She had asked for some techniques, and a couple of techniques that we have been exploring is the use of music, the use of art, and the use of color. And we connect those three to enable emotional intelligence. It means that you are then able to express yourself first on paper before you can actually express yourself verbally. So to Mrs. Nurumba Nahar Begum, the connection that we have with children and adults, because children are completely dependent on adults, it means that the cycle has to be broken in some way around that particular abuse. And what we try and do is that we work with children at the same time as with adults, because you cannot uplift kids and then send them home back to that violent environment. And it's only with adults understanding themselves that they have been put onto this earth by God, by Allah, as His vicegerent, that they are entities, beautiful entities on their own, that they can bring that blessing over to their children. And therefore, the children would then be able to express themselves by reflecting what their parents are reflecting to them. So in that way, that particular cycle can get broken, but only with both. We cannot only work with children or only work with adults. And that is a model that I'm working on in my master's, inshallah. So I really, really, really love the questions that everybody's been asking. I know that Zaakirah and Razia are immensely capable. And not only that, but they have us all. The Mothers College, Khan Time NPC, the college, plus thereupon University, plus Tshwane. So there's lots and lots of support for them. So it will be amazing to have this collaboration between South Africa and Bangladesh. I know I've been involved with lots of other collaborations, but not ever really into the Eastern and Middle Eastern world. So alhamdulillah, this is absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Music therapy and art therapy is increasingly getting prominence everywhere. So Hilal Bhai has a question. Hilal Bhai from GIZ. How can we educate our whole society to apply emotional intelligence to address problems relating gender-based violence and child abuse in Bangladesh in future? So I think Zaakirah and Razia could share some thoughts. Maybe they also plan to cooperate with Bangladeshi organizations in the future to provide capacity development support, I believe. Zaakirah or Razia?
Shukran. I would just like to thank Ma'am Madiha and Ma'am Husni for their beautiful, beautiful words of admiration and contribution. Yes, that is the path that we want to take, and inshallah, with our du'as, with our prayers, with our efforts, we will get there and we will see phenomenal results. And to Ma'am Husni, we are honored to be among such prestige. And we are blessed that you are taking this time to speak with us, and you have been in this world longer than us, no more than us, and we can only thank you to afford us this time to speak with each and every one of you. It is a blessing, honestly, it is, alhamdulillah. So yes, the question where it says, how can we educate a whole society? Well, if it were possible to just educate everyone in one go, it would just be amazing. We could work 5 days a week, and we could have the weekends off, and our jobs would be done. But what we do believe is that when we look at a whole society or look at masses, we try to go to the focal point that society is focused around or on. So that would be, for example, in our society, in South Africa, we have, there are 11 official languages. There are multi-ethnics, multicultural. It's just so many. And we find that it's difficult to really cope and understand.
I have already taken.
It's difficult to cope and understand each culture. So when one becomes uplifted, what we find very common is that you would find, let's say, priests of a church, or you would find leaders of a mosque, or you would find a congregation of another religion or another culture, and they would say, no, we don't do that, no. That's not for us. No, it's okay. My book says I can beat my wife. I don't have to. I can have 4 wives and not support the children or something like that. And what we find is with that, it's very difficult, because in some cultures it is acceptable. Rape is acceptable. Incest is acceptable. Violence is acceptable, and that is why it is so rife. So it is up to the individual and not so much the society, because society is something we cannot hit society. Society will always be there. It was there from the beginning of time, and it will be there till the end of time. But it is up to the individuals to say, and specifically, I think we start with our children, with our young boys and our young girls, and we tell them, this is the life that you need to live. The best life, the proper life, what I didn't have, you are going to have that. And that's how we build our society, because children make up our society, and they're going to live longer than us. So if we are living in the abuse cycle right now, it can cut off with the next one that's born. He can cut it off completely, and for the next 50 years that he lives, there's no abuse. And then we just had one, and that was all that we needed. So we pray, and our efforts are that, yes, we want to reach masses, but again, it is a choice that they have to make for themselves.
And also something to know, when you introduce something new, something unfamiliar to a society, it is not like every one of them are going to disregard it. There's going to be one person that's going to step forward and say, I want to make a change in my life, or I want to make a change in my home for my family. That one person is going to be like magical. They're going to spread that energies onto another person, and that is how a society perhaps could become whole or holistic all in all.
We've seen it in communities, and this is like it was where incest, you know, is very rife. No education. Children don't have an education, and they it's just drugs in and out, in and out. And that community was able to change it around in 4 years, where everyone wants an education. Everyone wants, you know, you have spouses that are coming together and they're supporting each other, where, you know, there's support systems and so forth. So they want it to work, yet it doesn't work in you know, if people don't want it.
I'd also like to share an experience of mine a few years ago when I worked at a school for chronically ill children. And well, some of them were chronically ill and some of them came from violent backgrounds. And in my class, I had a student. When I met her, she was 9 years old and she was gang raped. Not at the age of 9, much younger. The information was not disclosed to me. And through teaching her through years of school, she was in grade 2 or grade 3 at the time. There were many students in class, and she would always stare at me in a very strange manner. It's just no expression on her face, but she would stare at me. So, of course, just try to imagine a child that was gang raped, and I met her now only at the age of 9. Well, it was years before. Her emotions are obviously not intact. So every day she would have basically almost a different kind of personality because of her emotions spiraling all over. But through all of that struggle, she came to me, and just try to picture this. She came to me and she said, "Teacher Razia, there's something I want to tell you." This is days of staring. I said, "Sure, what is it that you want to ask or say?" "I want to be like you one day." Let's just stop there. "I want to be like you one day." So I said, "Why would you want to be like me?" And I'm new, right? She doesn't know anything about me. "I want to be like you because you always look happy." She didn't want to be the way I looked. She didn't want to be a teacher. What she saw is that every day when I walked in the class, I smiled, I spoke politely, I conducted the lesson in a manner for each child to understand, because all children are different. They all don't think the same. There's different learning styles that happen. But if a child can identify emotion in that frame of mind, in people, in adults, then that tells us a lot of what children actually want. And she could actually converse with me because I was one of the very few teachers that would actually give children time, you know, listen. And most teachers, unfortunately, don't do that today. So that's just something I wanted to share. Thank you.
So thanks for your concluding notes. We are towards the end of the session. And as you said, if we want to change the whole society, we have to start at home, at the individual level, at the family level, do our part, whether it's in the school or at our organization, you know, be the change you wish to see in the world. So let's do some.
I comment.
Okay.
Yes.
Last comment from Shamali Di, please.
Yes, and thanks for all. It is a new things, no doubt. All things, but in new form. But I think that it is very good that they are talking about multicultural world and beyond the religion, because it is the fight between men and women, men versus women, such type of things. Rape and other things when came in front of, then we feel that world is still now male dominated, totally male dominated everything. Because in this pandemic, where victims are women, maximum case, domestic violence or gender-based violence or sexual violence, rape, anything. So it only by psychosocial counseling or such type of emotional intelligence, it is one of the therapy, but we need more. in the range of social, political, cultural, economical, in all contexts, in which way we can address this. I think this first step is very good, and we have a long path to walk to withdraw these things from our world, to make the world women friendly at any place, at any situation, at any time. So thank you. This is my talking, that we need more.
Yes, we need a holistic approach. This is one of the approach we are focusing on today.
Yes.
Of course, at the societal level, we need a holistic approach. So let's hear a bit from Nazreen Appa.
Assalamu alaikum. From Cape Town, I'm Nazreen. I want to thank Brother Mamanur for taking this on board immediately when I spoke to him. He saw the possibilities. And of course, Into Hope for everything that's happened thus far, and inshallah for what we hope will happen in the future. And thank you to everyone else for participating.
So thanks, Anika, Nazreen Appa, for joining us from South Africa. Can we hear a bit from Anika Appa from Elegant Group?
Hello, assalamu alaikum, and thank you. Actually, I missed most of the session. I'm sorry. I just joined really late, but obviously I heard bits of the speakers and talk about how emotional intelligence deals with domestic violence, especially I just heard the rape case she talked about, and it's amazing to think how they dealt with it. It's I hope we can start something like this in Bangladesh, hopefully. And thank you so much for the organizers to actually organize something to this scale. It's amazing. I have my own women's platform where we're trying to do help women, especially understand their rights, and we hopefully want to work about with children in future. But this something in this scale is a very good approach, and I really appreciate the speakers and the moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Appa, for your thoughts. Maruf Appa from GIZ, would you like to share something? She is also in our gender working group at GIZ.
Thank you, Mehzabin Appa, and thank you all the speakers. Actually, Mehzabin Appa, you know that in GIZ also we are very concerned about the domestic violence and the gender-based violence within GIZ. And I thank you and Fawad Bhai for inviting me in such an important discussion. So I have learned a lot. And many of you know that I also have an organization where I work with young people for their outdoor education. So I have gathered so many information, and I have learned many information from this event, these discussions where which I can utilize in GIZ work and in my personal work as well. So thank you very much to the speakers, Mehzabin Appa and Fawad Bhai. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. So if there are no more comments, we could wrap up our session today. We're towards the end of the session. So today, to give a quick recap, we learned that globally as well as in Bangladesh, gender-based violence is increasing during the pandemic, whether it's independent partner violence, domestic violence, or child marriage. It is increasing globally. As per reports by UN, World Health Organization, then in Bangladesh by Manusher Jonno Foundation, UN is calling it the shadow pandemic. And Into Hope, in its presentation today, offered emotional intelligence as one of the remedies for domestic violence, not the only remedy, but one of the remedies to take a holistic mindset to approach domestic violence and such with emotional intelligence. They offer to learn from 3 lessons. One is from to perceive, to adapt, to persevere, as well as live. And they also shared about what is in emotional intelligence and how we can use it to combat gender-based violence, whether we are a survivor or a victim, whether we are a family or friend or supporter or a bystander, or even whether we are an organization. So emotional intelligence is something that can come handy to counter domestic violence, whether you are an individual or an organization. So what do we need to do? We need to become aware as well as manage our emotions to become emotionally intelligent. So thanks one again to the organizers, EXPOPRO, especially Mamun Bhai, FLUX, especially Fahud Bhai, and Into Hope speakers, keynote speakers, Razia and Zaakirah. Thank you. So here's the end of the session today. And many thanks to all our esteemed guests for joining us today at the session. It was very interactive, hearing all your thoughts and questions and queries. Good discussion today. Thank you, speakers again.
Thank you so
Zaakirah and
much.
Razia.
Just wanted to thank Mr. Fahud Khan and Mr. Mamun Rahman and Mehzabin for organizing everything. We're very grateful and thankful to you. And we ask everyone present today to please keep us in your du'as so we can carry on with our journey to assist people in the world, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maun Bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehzabin Appa.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
কথা হবে আবার
Okay.
I missed everything. Okay, thank you very much. Ratanda is here, Shamali Didi was here, and the new person. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.